right, we have a full panel with us from Energy Trust of Oregon today. Very excited to have them here. This webinar is being presented by the Clean Energy States Alliance, also known as CESA. Before I pass it over to our panelists today, I'd like to go over a few quick webinar logistics. All of our attendees are in listen-only mode today. You have a couple of options to join the audio portion of the webinar. You can join via computer, mic, and speakers, or you can connect via telephone. If you'd like to minimize the webinar console so that you can view the presentation full screen, you can click on the orange arrow that you see circled here. And you can also click on that orange arrow to expand the webinar console. And one thing you might like to do with your webinar console during the webinar is to submit your questions and comments. We will be saving about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of our presentations for Q&A with the audience. So type your questions in, type your comments in, we'll get to as many as we can. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. We will put the recording on our website and send it out to you via email within the next 24 to 48 hours, so stay tuned for that. And that's it that I have for you today. So now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Abby Ramanan. Abby is a project director here at the Clean Energy States Alliance, and she is going to get us started.
All right, thank you, Sam, and thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Clean Energy States Alliance, or CESA, we are a nonprofit member organization of state energy agencies who are working to advance clean energy. We have over 30 core and affiliate members around the country, many of whom you can see listed here. And next slide. So today's webinar is based off of a report called Investing in Relationships, 6 Strategies State Agencies Can Use to Equitably Partner with Community Representatives, which is authored by 2 of our speakers today, Bayoan Ware and Lidia Garcia. We'll cover several other strategies for community partnerships outlined in the report today, but not all of them. So I highly recommend that you check it out to learn more about Energy Trust of Oregon's work. You can click on the link below or just check out our website. And next slide. So to give you all some background, this report and today's webinar were both produced under CESA's Solar with Justice project. Under Solar with Justice, CESA, along with several of our project partners, including Energy Trust of Oregon, we are investigating how state energy agencies, or SEAs, and community-based organizations, or CBOs, can work together more collaboratively and effectively to advance the benefits of solar, particularly for marginalized communities. Solar Justice is primarily funded through a grant from the Department of Energy's Solar Energy Technologies Office, as well as some additional funding from the Nathan Cummings Foundation. And to learn more about Solar Justice and also check out other case studies similar to the one we're discussing today, you can again check out our website, and the link is there. And now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. So we are joined today, like I mentioned, by our report authors, Bayoan Ware and Lidia Garcia, as well as Emma Clark and Ryan Cruz, who lead some of the programs that are featured in this report. So Bayoan Ware is a project manager on the renewables team at Energy Trust of Oregon. His role focuses on community-focused custom projects, such as the management of the BIPOC Solar Ambassadors pilot. He is relatively new to the energy field, and he has a professional background in affordable housing and early childhood education. Lidia Garcia is a Roger Arliner Young Clean Energy Fellow at Energy Trust of Oregon, where they work on community engagement related projects and initiatives. Lidia has a background in racial and gender equity, working with grade schoolers, college students, and older adults. Lidia's passion centers on working for Mother Earth through community building and partnership. Then we have Emma Clark. Emma is the outreach manager to communities of color at Energy Trust of Oregon. She supports efforts to expand the organization's reach in previously underserved communities and focuses on building relationships with and creating opportunities for communities of color throughout the state. Emma is new to energy, but brings experience in small business development, nonprofit management, language access, and outreach to community-based organizations serving underserved populations. And finally, we have Ryan Cruz. Ryan is a senior program manager on the residential team at Energy Trust of Oregon and oversees their customer acquisition work. Ryan has been implementing and managing efficiency programs in the Pacific Northwest since 2010. In the last 5 years, his work is largely focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and community engagement. So welcome to all of our speakers today. And with that, I will hand it over to Bayo and Lidia to kick things off.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the loud noise. I'm actually outside enjoying nature. My name is Lidia Garcia. I'm a Ray Fellow, and the Ray Fellowship is a fellowship that promotes people of color and the space of clean energy and conservation. I'm one of the co-authors for our case study, Investing in Relationships, which details strategies that state agencies can use to equitably partner with community representatives and organizations. I'm joined by some of my fellow colleagues at Energy Trust, Emma Clark, Ryan Cruz, and Bayoan Ware. They've also invested me to click through the slides, so here I go. So our agenda for today, it will begin with some acknowledgements, followed by information about Energy Trust. From there, we will discuss our community engagement approach, sharing a couple of examples that Energy Trust has implemented to further our community engagement and partnership. Following that, we will have some examples, or what myself and my co-author Bio are calling mini case studies. We will conclude with some lessons learned and open up the webinar to some questions. While the case study was co-authored by two individuals, it was very much a collaborative effort involving several staff at Energy Trust and other contributors. The full list is here, but we wanted to give a special shout out to Abby at CISA and our panelists today. So a little bit about Energy Trust. Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit organization that's committed to helping primarily and serving primarily Oregon and Southwest Washington's private utility customers and communities to reduce energy costs, such as gas and electric, and realize additional benefits of energy efficiency and renewable energy in customers' homes, businesses, commercial spaces, as well as government buildings, and etc. In promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy, Energy Trust of Oregon offers incentives such as energy efficient appliances, renewable energy. We also offer incentives such as energy efficient appliances, solar electric systems from homes and businesses, incentives for municipal micro hydro pump installations to programs to improve community resiliency and electric grid reliability. Energy Trust is largely funded by the Oregon Public Utilities Commission through the public purpose charge, but we're increasingly acquiring additional resources to expand our offerings. Since 2002, when we were established, we have invested $2.6 billion in customer dollars to help over 800,000 households and businesses make clean energy improvements, creating 912 average megawatts in savings and 147 average megawatts of generation. Hope that makes sense to people. Those efforts have contributed to $10.6 billion in savings over the course of a lifetime of those investments. The investments have an impact of adding $12 billion in economic activity to Oregon's economy. All right, a little bit more background about the case study and Energy Trust of Oregon itself. So before highlighting a few of the ways we've engaged with and competent community members, which is what the paper is about in case you haven't taken a chance to read it, it's important to talk about how we got to this point. For most of our Energy Trust's history, we focused on achieving the most energy savings and renewable energy generation through the most cost-effective means. This meant that we were working with customers who needed the least organizational investment and support in choosing clean energy solutions. While we consistently met our cost-effective goal, we did so by narrowing the focus to mostly white, urban, and wealthier households and businesses that benefited the most from our services because they required the smallest cash incentives and least program support to participate. As a result, we underserved Black and Indigenous people, as well as communities of colors, those with low and moderate incomes, as well as those living in rural communities. After being made aware of this by our partners, Energy Trust conducted a study in 2014 to compare households' current and potential participation rates in our programs by geographical region and ethnicity. This highlighted and confirmed what we already heard, and the conclusion was that we were falling short. This led to cascading series of organizational improvements that springboarded the launch of our diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives to create new approaches that better serve those communities that we've historically missed and underserved. Out of the DEI initiative, came the DEI committee, comprised of staff and non-staff members, and a DEI plan to guide our strategy. We learned what we needed and included greater collaboration with those that we served, which you're going to hear about as an example in our case studies, or the case study we're going to be talking about today. Oh, it moves a little too fast. So our community partnerships have never been more essential for achieving a just energy transition that ensures the missteps of the past aren't repeated in the future. Oh. While we conduct outreach to the community as large as well, we also often work with small businesses, community-based organizations, CBOs, you'll be hearing that term a lot, CBO, and formal local leaders to discover common goals and align on strategies to achieve common goals and separate goals among ourselves and the organizations and people. Many times, organizational leaders fail to consider or remember that attending meetings on Zoom or be in boardrooms is not in everybody's job description, or that people have flexibility in their workplace. If we're asking community representatives to work with us, it is equitable that they're compensated to partake in knowledge gathering, idea development, etc. The same way the Energy Trust staff is compensated to do so. While this might be a sort of transactional element of these relationships, should not be the foundation. Instead, it should be a co-creation of solutions at the beginning to meet the shared goal. Compensation can be and is a resource that is needed to better facilitate the work that all parties all want to achieve together, or independently sometimes. Energy Trust journey for equitable compensation began with our Diversity Advisory Council, otherwise known as the DAC, and that is where we will start today. And I'll pass it to my co-author, Bayoan Ware.
All right, give me a thumbs up if you can hear and see me. All right, fantastic. Thanks, Lydia, for introducing myself and the rest of the team. And thanks again to CISA for giving us this opportunity to talk a little bit more about the work that we're doing. So the reason that we chose to start with the DAC, the Diversity Advisory Council, is because that provides a structure and a process by which many of the other many case studies that we list out in the case study are developed or followed. So Debbie Menashe, the Director of Legal and Human Resources, through her development of the DAC, created this blueprint for compensatory collaboration. Now, the DAC is a group of external stakeholders who represent or serve Energy Trust priority communities. Those are Black, Indigenous, people of color, households and businesses experiencing low incomes, and rural populations. The purpose is to support our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals by providing input and feedback on organizational documents and data analysis, identifying opportunities and topics for the board and executive staff to discuss, and offering valuable community insights that we on staff do not currently have and may never have. So staff, mostly Ms. Menashe, spent a year conducting outreach to community leaders around the state to understand how this type of council can add value to our organization and how to find the right people to serve in that role. Staff used this knowledge to create a foundational DAC, which comprised community members, staff, and board representatives. And some of those community members, too, in particular, went on to serve on the DAC for a number of years. So they all worked together to co-create a charter that reflects the diversity of the group that they are trying to recruit. They wanted to create a council with even more diverse membership and areas of expertise that the organization needed, but didn't exist in the two councils that we already have. One focuses on energy efficiency and the other focuses on renewable energy. Many of the members of those councils were deeply embedded into the energy sector already, like members of utilities and energy-focused public agencies, people like us and people like you all in the audience. And it's part of, as Lydia was saying, it's part of our jobs to attend meetings like advisory energy councils, and we get paid to do that. But what we were striving for was membership to a wider group of people who had different personal and professional experiences, many of whom do not get paid for this type of participation because they work with nonprofits that may not be energy focused, or their budget just doesn't cover expenses like these. This led to us thinking creatively on how we can compensate these individuals so that they can fully participate to their greatest desire. We thought about things like providing food consistently, or childcare, and also a stipend. And these considerations were a departure from how we approached this type of work at the time. And we were able to make these changes because leadership made embedding equity a priority. Our executive director joined the organization specifically because we were already going in this direction and growing in this direction, and our desire to keep moving forward. In the end, we settled on providing a stipend for some logistical and legal reasons, and that stipend was created based on conversations with other state agencies to get a sense of what is a fair, equitable price. And things like childcare presented additional hurdles, especially in the realm of acquiring the right insurance to make sure that those children are safe and that the organization is safe. So we decided that the stipend would cover all of our bases with the least amount of risk for us. And we, as an organization, put a lot of staff resources, particularly at the executive level, to make this project or make this council a reality. And it eventually led to, this work at least led to the creation of a DEI lead with the help of a DEI consultant who helped us form this strategy. And as I said before, this blueprint was repeated over and over again throughout the different projects that we've done at this organization, such as with the Solar Ambassadors pilot project. Next slide, please. Hey, Lydia, could you advance the slide, please? Oh, sorry. My job's done. I'll see you all in a minute. We're going over to Ryan.
Thanks, Bio. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So in 2020, we created a program called Community Partner Funding. Community Partner Funding is essentially a suite of higher incentives, or the highest incentives that we can offer while still being cost effective. It's intended for home upgrades that are delivered through community-based organizations that serve people of color, rural customers with low to moderate incomes, people with disabilities, and or veterans. So these community-based organizations act as a trusted connector between Energy Trust and our offers and the customers in their community. The customers don't have to know or trust Energy Trust, but if they know their local community service provider and they're willing to let them into their homes and advise them on energy saving projects, then we feel like this ultimately achieves the goal that we are after. Additionally, these community-based organizations, they understand their community's needs. they may know about the housing stock or specific details about the housing stock in certain parts of the state, or other nuances like the availability of local contractors, and with this information can connect customers appropriately with the most relevant incentives and offers that we provide. We learn a lot from their expertise, and so in a sense, this is like a tailored program delivery and outreach strategy. So through community partner funding, last year we had 16 community-based organizations active in the program, and they delivered over almost $1 million in incentives. And we think that this year we expect all of that to double. So the program is growing pretty quick. And the graphic here just kind of represents various tiers of our programming, and the standard incentives kind of make up the base, and this is sort of what Lydia mentioned earlier was the programming that we've traditionally provided, and then community partner funding kind of at the highest tier. I'll just also point out that each of the programs represented here in this graphic are much more than just incentives. This is really oriented around incentive amounts, but marketing approaches, contractors' roles in these various programs, the paths for access and the processes for customers are all different and tailored to try to best serve the customers. Lydia, next slide. So just a few things we've learned from this program so far. As I mentioned, community partner funding takes much more than just incentives to be successful. So we learned early on that simply making incentives available, even high dollar incentives or things that are no cost, is not enough. Partner organizations and the communities typically need some kind of additional support, such as energy efficiency related training, administrative funding for the organizations themselves, marketing assistance, contractor relationships. All of these things can be necessary for them to effectively access the incentives that are available. We also learned that we need to leave space for each community to determine what works for them, what works best for them. So part of the reason our more traditional programming doesn't always work in a community is that it's often too prescriptive. So we're rolling out these programs statewide, and they don't necessarily consider the nuances of different communities. So we make sure to leave space for the partners involved to do things in their own way. But that said, many of the partners also need guidance or structure. They often lack experience with energy programs. And so we look to show them, provide enough structure to show them how to get started with their program. And, so in this way, we must both remain flexible, but also provide structure when needed. And then our last lesson learned, this work just takes time. Traditional results such as energy savings, which is kind of our currency, are often delayed until real capacity can be developed within the organizations. And these are relationships; they just take time to grow. So we've learned to look, for other signs that long term that the programs will produce savings or be successful. So for example, if a partner organization is successfully onboarding and keeping staff, that's a good sign that they're starting to kind of get it and they're starting to build towards something. If that organization is able to secure additional funding for programs that we've started, that too is a good sign of success. And that has happened on a number of occasions. In fact, it's happened to a degree that often the additional funding that they're securing is much greater than the funding that we're able to provide or providing initially. Another example, if the community's awareness or attitude towards energy trust is improving, that too is a key kind of sign that it's headed in the right direction. So as a very short overview, but that's what I have. So I will pass it on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I will pick up where Ryan left off. And similarly, I will pick the Solar Ambassadors pilot program picks up kind of where the community partner funding program is continuing to go. So this pilot program is, its goal is to increase access and awareness of residential solar to communities of color in the Portland metro area. We do this by having culturally specific partners who recruit and we collectively train these community members to act as solar ambassadors. And this takes the form of telling their friends or neighbors or family members, people that they go to church with or play sports with, what solar is, some of the cost considerations, and how to explore getting it. Similar to the community partner funding, these customers don't have to know who Energy Trust is at all or trust Energy Trust. The solar ambassadors know who we are, but the people that they talk to may not. But that's fine, because all they have to do is have the trust of the ambassadors just need to have the trust, or rather the homeowners need to have the trust of the community ambassadors, and also the trust of the organizations that we work with. So the pilot is currently underway. We have recruited and trained those ambassadors, and they are currently conducting engagements this month, and they'll be finished on towards the end of it. So the team comprises 7 culturally specific or responsive community-based organizations, along with Energy Trust, who plays a project management role. And I would be remiss if I did not say that it is funded. It is a part of the Solar Energy Innovation Network, which is a U.S. Department of Energy program that helps communities to develop transformative ways of adopting solar energy. There are 8 teams this year, and all of these teams work together and with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory to develop ideas in real-world contexts, yielding results that can unlock tomorrow's solar markets. So one thing that we've embedded into this project based on understanding from previous work is that the development of trust and the leveraging of trust is integral to projects like these. As I said before, this project kind of grew somewhat out of relationships, or definitely grew out of relationships that were established by Ryan and Lizzie Rubidoux, who also works at Energy Trust, with the African American Alliance for Homeownership and Verde. Both of those organizations participated in the community partner funding program, and they helped us to co-create and co-design this project. They also leveraged their relationships with these other CBOs in the area to bring them onto the team as well. Now, we prioritize consensus decision making, and Energy Trust takes a lead role only when there is a gap that the team would like us to fill. This is, like I said before, with the DAC, this is a departure from how we have traditionally worked. Usually we are very process oriented and structured, and there's a clear decision-making framework that we follow. This was not the case. And as a result, it was personally a little bit messy for me in the role that I am used to playing. I had to be and Lydia and I, she's also working on this project with me. She's also on the team. We had to be flexible, recognizing that other organizations have other ways of working, and some of those ways work just as well as ours do. So it isn't just about learning how to increase awareness of residential solar, which is our goal, but also who we are as teammates, as individuals, and as organizations, and how we can work together currently as well as for future projects. So collaboration is better thought of as being between individuals who work in organizations rather than the organizations themselves. As a little anecdote, this idea was iterated based on just one-off conversations on walks around the neighborhood that Liz Rubido had with Oriana Maniera, who used to work at Verde, and some other casual conversations that she had with Cheryl Roberts, who is the executive director of the African American Alliance for Homeownership. So we work together, this team works together well because we give each other grace and understand and are prioritizing and looking to understand what each organization's priorities are and how we can align those. As Ryan said, capacity has been a consistent concern for many of our partners. Just right when we started, when we were a month into the project, one partner had to leave because their staff member that was working on this project left, and they did not have the capacity to fill in that gap. A lot of them, as you all know, a lot of nonprofits work on grants or rely on grants, which is it's unstable funding source. And along those lines, because the project, we knew going in that the project would cost more than the funding that we were receiving from the SIGN program, we went in expecting to fill any financial and staffing gaps. So as an example, we have the most staff working on this project because we knew that there was going to be additional logistical needs and marketing needs that potentially those our partners on the team would not be able to meet. And this is equity in practice. We as an organization have more resources, and so we spend more resources. The other organizations have less capacity, so the team collectively expects less capacity of them. And as I said before, we're not just investing in the pilot, but also investing in and building capacity for our partners. Again, this is similar to what Ryan is doing with community partner funding. And when we do this, great things happen. Because Ryan's work and Lizzie's work and Debbie Menashe's work in the past, those efforts have led to this project becoming a reality. And this is seen in the video with one of our team members, Maria Dolores Torres, who works at Adelante Mujeres. Next slide, please. It's not moving. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yep, if you could just.
Is this the right slide?
It is correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Nope, that's fine. Can you press on the? Can we play that? Or is that not gonna?
Sorry, Bio. Everything was blocking my screen. There you go. I'm not sure the audio is going to work though.
Oh, okay. Well, there are subtitles. And I would like to mention that this is this video is played in the audio is in Spanish. Maria Dolores Torres would prefer to speak in her native language of Spanish, and the subtitles are And I think, Samantha, in the interest of time, because we're running a little bit short, maybe we can just have a link to this. We can put a link to the video in the chat and pass it over back to Lydia. Thanks.
All right, sorry about that. We'll put a link to the video in the post-webinar materials. Hold on a second. Okay. I think we're back. There we go.
All right, with that, and sorry, I said Lydia, we'll pass it to Emma.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can. I sincerely apologize. Today's one of those days where you're out on the field. I tend to do that a lot. So my name is Emma Clark, and I'm the Senior Outreach Manager for Communities of Color. Most of you know, we work throughout the state of Oregon and Southwest Washington, and so that means we get to be out in the field a lot, and we get to meet with a lot of our building relationships with community-based organizations. We get to meet our customers. We get to hear stories, and we're constantly seeking opportunities where we could bring better access to the communities that we have not served or we have not engaged with. And this includes coastal regions, it includes rural, it includes the reservations, and it includes all of our utility customers. And I hope everyone is listening today. Julie, again, I apologize for my terrible connection, but just wanted to share with you of some really exciting work that we're doing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. In November, we really wanted to reach out to our community-based organizations who we rely on those relationships in order to learn from the communities that they serve. What are the needs in their communities, and what are the needs, and how can we align our goals so that we can make sure that everyone is served. And so this opportunity was a way to bring community-based organizations together, and I was just very privileged to have the opportunity to convene a community-based organization meet and greet. We started in November, and it was a way to get feedback in a way that was that we could bring back to sort of as a guidance for our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan for this year, for 2023. And one of the things, of course, we learned is that this is going into community and just asking for things, is not always super exciting, so it has to be like a mutual value. And one of the values that we discovered, and it's to no surprise, that community-based organizations are looking to network with each other. They're actually wondering what other CBOs are doing in this DEI space. And they're looking to share resources, share strategies, share connections, and things like that. So the greatest value that they have found is this community of support for the community-based organizations. And it's been really exciting. We started convening. We convene about 15 to 20 community-based organizations in the Washington County area. These are relationships that we've established over the last 10 years plus. And then we got invited by Clackamas, and that's my backyard. That's where I live. And come out, and we would love to know about what these community-based organizations are doing for our community, and how can we collaborate, how can we partner, and how can we share the resources and just leverage all the opportunity that's out there to better serve our customers. And then we got invited in Woodburn, the fastest growing city in the state of Oregon, and there we were. So in Clackamas, we hosted our CBO meet and greet, and we co-hosted with the Black Business Association of Oregon, Lance Randall. We got to hear lots of things about his organization, the needs there, and so it's just really exciting, happy. Everybody was just, just sharing and laughing, and it was just overall, contagious, because you want to stay in that relationship. And when we went to Woodburn, we co-hosted with Latino Business Alliance, and they were just amazing, and all they're growing so fast, and they also wanted to know, what resources do you provide for the small businesses that we support? And there we gathered, we invited a lot of the community-based organizations that we currently have a relationship with, and also those that we don't have a relationship with. They are interested in working with us, and they're interested in knowing what we do. And so we had a big group, and there was some laughing and crying, and overall it was just really exciting. And I feel very privileged to be in this space that I can work with such a great team like Brian and Lidia and Bayo. I just think it's amazing, because what we're doing here is we're listening and we're learning, and there's always so much more to learn, because each community in its own region has its own diversity, right? And so they have their own needs, and so learning from that and becoming more welcoming, I think that's really the biggest lesson learned. And we look forward to going in Klamath. So if any of you guys know where Chulacan is, that is in the Klamath territory. And so we'll be hosting there with one of our community-based liaisons who has invited us there as well. But just excited to just share this with you, and invite you that if you are interested in joining us and seeing how we convene and the work that we do, we can come to your area and we can just share just these great relationships. Because in my career, I believe that, connections are just like, they're the most value you'll ever have, like, in your career development, right? You have those relationships, and when they are authentic and genuine, they will continue. You'll be able to be, out there in the community, serving the same community in so many different ways. And when that relationship and that trust is built, you'll be able to do so much more for our community. And so with that, I think I will just leave it at that. I think most of you can read the slides, but thank you so much, Bayo, for the invitation, and it's a privilege to join you today.
Hello, everybody, again. So wanted to thank Ryan, Bayo, and Emma for discussing just 3 of the engagements that we detailed in the case study. So you're going to want to check out the entire paper to learn further what Energy Trust is doing to invest in relationships. So now we'll pass it to Bayo for a brief general lessons learned from all of the engagements.
Great. Thank you very much. And very briefly, there are 5 different lessons that we've learned from this project or case study. One is to identify the problem. It's best to do that with the people who have a good understanding of the problem. That is the expertise that we have, and also the expertise that community members have. Secondly, conduct preliminary research. We, in some of our work, didn't just go off on our own. We spoke with other local and state agencies to get some recommendations from them before we created our different activities. Third, brainstorm small solutions. Start small and co-create things that can be done and iterated on fairly quickly. This is good for the project itself, as well as for the relationship building. Next slide, please. And once you have some of those solutions, create a pilot. And when you're creating that pilot, use the work with the same people that helped brainstorm those solutions to work on that pilot as well. Finally, assess and iterate. It's this continual process of lathering, rinsing, and repeating to just consistently improve on what was created. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that state agencies are seen as experts and leaders, and that is right for them to be seen as such because they are. However, they aren't the only leaders and the only experts in society. And it's important for us to leverage all of those different areas of expertise that we have collectively to reach those shared goals that we discover that we also have. So with that, I will pass it back to Abby.
Great, thank you all so much. So we've left some time now for questions. So folks in the audience, I encourage you to submit your questions via the question box in your webinar console. We'll try and get to as many as we can in the remaining 10 minutes that we have. So the first question is, I think, probably gonna be for Emma. Could you describe the structure of the statewide outreach that you all conducted? You know, how many staff are participating in that, and how did you sort of figure out who is going where, and then also keep track of all of those individual relationships with businesses?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. So it's interesting, you know, we spend a lot of time strategizing on how we're going to do things, but then you implement your plan and you run into things, right? And one of the things that happened with this specific group was, so we had 5 different engagements. One was with a focus on the trades. The other one was focused with low income. Another one was with rural. Another one was with the tribal communities, which I also convened about as well. But the other one was urban. And we found that these specific urban CBOs and several others, they didn't already have a relationship with us. And so we wanted to make sure that, you know, we could work with them. And so everyone else who didn't fit in those, you know, those other 5 categories, they fit in this urban category. But we wanted to make sure that if anybody was interested in providing feedback on our DEI plan, that they could. And so this group, our other groups were a lot smaller. This one was the biggest because there were a lot of CVOs who wanted to participate. And for our staff, we normally have about 3 facilitators because the group can be pretty big. We can have 20, 30 folks that want to all provide feedback. And then we have a planning committee as well. And the planning committee, we learn what is that our co-host CVO wants to know, and what style do they want to present? Do they want us to present? So we have to prepare for that. And so we do rely on a lot of in-house and a lot of the expertise that we have, we bring together, and that's how we work. But yeah, hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. So I think this question's kind of going to apply to everyone. So whoever wants to take a pass at answering it, go ahead. But how in general does Energy Trust kind of vet CBOs that you want to work with? How do you balance kind of the administrative requirements of them having to provide necessary information to you all with wanting to reduce, you know, any sort of administrative burden, and just in general, what parameters are you using to kind of identify those partners?
I could field that one maybe, or at least start. Yeah, I mean, I think just making sure you spend enough time like getting to know each other. And I mean, there's some kind of basic concepts that apply to just any kind of relationship building, you know, leaving some initial time to just get to know each other, talk about goals. And so, you know, this kind of gets back to my lesson learned about things taking time. Is I think, you know, it isn't like in the first meeting you're sort of planning programs. You're just talking and getting to know, you know, spending a little time with each other. And, you know, and sometimes sometimes what you learn through that is that it's not a good fit. And, you know, you sort of take each other's contact information and say goodbye. Maybe it's like dating, I don't know. But, you know, so I think just kind of going slow, leaving some time to get to know each other, following some kind of best practice around relationship building. I think that's been kind of the foundation of our vetting process. As far as resources, you know, so doing that does require a lot of resources, and you know, and part of what has hindered our progress to making things bigger is that, you know, we don't have the resources to, like, you know, you're sort of spending a lot of time building relationships, and it is starting to get to a point where it's getting large and cumbersome. And so we are kind of trying to find shortcuts and formalize that process a little better, and I guess just structure it a little more so that it's not quite so informal. And I don't know that we fully solved that problem, but it is something that as we try to scale up, like that we're recognizing when you have, you know, 10 or 15 organizations, it's one thing to manage those relationships, but when you have 50, 60, or 80, it's going to get cumbersome. And so I don't know, TBD, you know, I think there's a way to do it, but I don't know that we've actually solved that problem yet.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else had anything to add to that. Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's again, going back to the iterative process is kind of really helpful for things like this. So kind of going back to how all this work initially started with having the DAC and kind of the impetus for that, could any of you speak to how Energy Trust kind of decided to become to prioritize DEIJ and lay those foundational principles and make this a priority that then carried on through to the rest of your work?
Yes, I can take that one. Some of it had to do with what the community members that we were the community organizations or community members that we sought out to get feedback, like what they told us. And some of the information was, you know, we don't know who you are. I think there's this process of there are different conceptions of what Energy Trust is. Some think it's just a utility, some think it is a state agency, and some just don't know that we exist at all. And so that was some of the impetus for creating the Diversity Advisory Council. Also, we conducted studies and realized just to see how we were doing, because as Lidia said, we get funding from every customer of the private utilities in Oregon and some in Southwest Washington. So we have a duty to serve all of those customers. So in some way, not every individual household, but every community. And when we conducted a study to see how effectively we are at doing that, we realized that we were missing particularly the Spanish-speaking community. So that was another step that we took to realize we had some more work to do.
I would just add that you know, we had kind of started down this path, but before we had really achieved much, we got some really like public criticism. You know, I mean, there were articles published, and you know, that definitely kicked things into hyperdrive in terms of like, well, okay, this has clearly become a problem that we need to face. And so, you know, if you're not taking these concepts very seriously, it's probably only a matter of time before someone sort of calls you out on that. And So, you know, we kind of learned the hard way. I think it would have been nice if we had jumped on it a little faster.
Sometimes public shaming does work. So I think this might be your last question, or maybe we'll have time for one more, but could you all speak to the relationship between Energy Trust and local utilities and how that factors into how you kind of collaborate with community partners?
Yeah, I can start. You know, I think in our realm, meaning the partners that we work with, including the utilities, I mean, despite our being about a year late, maybe, we were still ahead of most other organizations that we work with. And so we have really kind of nicely positioned ourselves as experts in this stuff in our area. And so, you know, everybody's catching up, which is great. But for a while, it's been a lot of like teaching, I feel like, and a lot of like going back to basics and having these very like fundamental conversations about why this stuff is important and how you do it at a very fundamental level, just kind of helping get others up to speed. And, you know, luckily and nicely, there's the world, I think in general, has progressed a lot in the last handful of years. And so, you know, some of these other organizations are catching up really quickly, and they're actually quite active now. And so they're pushing us even further to do more. They're showing up as like actually helpful partners now, instead of just time sucks, honestly, where they're like, oh, I got a million questions for you. And it's like, that's great, but I actually want to get work done too. And now they're actually showing up, like helping, you know, which is a nice evolution.
Great, well, thank you all. We're now at the top of the hour, and I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to just give another round of gratitude to all of our incredible speakers, and really encourage all of you in the audience to check out the case study where we go into detail on all of these programs, and also check out future Solar with Justice webinars and case studies that will be coming out this summer. I think our next one's going to be July 12th. And yeah, thanks again, and hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all.